Even if you are indifferent to your own fate, you have no right to be indifferent to that of the child for whose existence in this world you are responsible. Every man who is not helping to bring about a better state of affairs for the future is helping to perpetuate the present misery. There is no such thing as being neutral. We must either help or hinder.
It's equally an education and a call to arms for people.
It is a critique of capitalism, but it's from a working class, lived-in perspective.
It's a great argument for the necessity of organising life in a better way.
Conjecture is as follows really, that Robert Noonan was born in Dublin in 37 Wexford Street and lived there for about 4 years max. And in 1873, Samuel Croker and Mary Noonan are living together in 91 East India Road, Poplar, London. And the very strong possibility or likelihood is that her 3-year-old son, Robert, is with them. And he lived with them until, say, the mid-1880s. Around 1891, he moved to South Africa, where again his public life begins, and we know he got married and divorced and came back to Hastings and so on, so that's more public. So we filled in a good bit of the gap between 1870 and 1891.
One of the great tragedies of the book is that he's died unaware of it being published one and what it became. I'd love to know what inspired him to sit down and write it, and to find those hours while he's paying the rent and earning a living, to write by hand, I presume by candlelight or faded light, and putting all that energy into writing a massive tome of work. Every piece of work, be it a novel or a play or a poem, you have to believe that you have something to say. Otherwise, it's pointless, and why did he have something to say?
Money is the cause of poverty, because poverty consists in being short of the necessaries of life.
It's an everyday story of workers told in a way which mixes pathos, comedy, realism, and puts fire in your belly.
The book essentially is about a group of painters on a building site who are just happy knocking out a living and aren't aware that they're being used by ruthless employers to make money off them by giving them the prize of a job. And they learn to value that their job isn't a gift, that they've earned the rights.
When the Penguin edition of 1940 came out, it was sold at the rate of about 1 a minute. It had an immense impact on the population, and particularly on younger people. It's often credited with influencing the election of a transformational Labour government at the end of the war in 1945, which brought in the welfare state, the NHS. It brought in free secondary education and brought in the nationalisation of mines and railways and so on.
The sweeping victories throughout the country mark an epoch in the political life of this country.
You could change the location, you could change the gender. It really is the history of every man and every woman at work.
Elements of the book just struck me as, confirming what was then a developing politics. So in terms of my own political formation, it would certainly be fairly central. I first came across the book by hearing people older than me in the movement talking about it. Never paid huge attention until one day I was working on a building site, and our site clerk, he handed me the book. So the following day I came into work like this. I just couldn't put the book down. About 10 o'clock in the morning, I get called again to the office, and there's John. Have you got my book? So I fetch the book in and start to hand it to him. And he said, no. He said, go off to the Jacks or find somewhere quiet. I'll cover for you. So George Wimpy paid me 55.5p an hour to read The Ragged Trousered Philanthropists.
I think it's the underpinning. It's where I learned what socialism is, what that concept actually means. Because there's things like fairness and equality and being nice and all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't give you a systemic belief in what it is you're trying to do. But as a trade unionist, it's not much help. Because he's not a trade unionist and he doesn't say this is how we achieve A, B, C and D. It's about the theoretical basis of the system he was living in, which we're still living in, and what the future might be like. And that was quite a common approach to it, Victorian and Edwardian socialists and those kind of believers.
Those who possess all the money say that the necessaries of life shall not be produced except for their profit.
It's been a tremendous influence. And I didn't realise you could look at your own world in the way I knew paint and decorating inside out. So it re-informed everything about me as a playwright, that I didn't have to look that wide anymore, that what I was going to do every day in work, the conditions I was going through, the black economy I was going through, that here was all the ingredients for a version of that informed by that book.
Tressell was born, as we know, in Wexford Street, which wouldn't have been the worst street to be in Dublin. But at the time, the city was very much a place of contrast. The housing situation, sadly, was much as it is now, with even worse overcrowding. So tenements were a large feature. I know I would have read the book first when I was a teenager, still at school, and I can remember the feelings of anger. We need something that will reinvigorate that anger about the injustice and the inequality in our country.
He has politically motivated pieces of art.
To try and paint political art as like some sort of taboo thing is very disingenuous, and it's very like either ignorant or kind of malicious in a way.
So that's satire, is it? Putting a pig's face on a Garda.
It's socially engaged. Like, this is the biggest issue in my eyes, and the biggest issue in the eyes of a lot of my kind of peers and people my age, is housing. Rather than giving someone reams and reams and reams of text and shite talk, there it is on a wall, bing bang. That's the end result. That's the very sharp end of what can happen. And I think when it's summed up for people like that in that way, it resonates with them a little bit more. Do you know what I mean?
Whether it is right or wrong, landlordism is one of the causes of poverty.
Well, I think inspiration is its key thing, and then it also shows you where we could fall back to. So I think it shows you where we've come from and what we might slip back into, and so therefore it's a very important read.
A magnificent achievement against all the odds. Everything was stacked against him.
A Robert Tressell book can simplify and convey the politics and message the working class people.
It would keep you going.
But believe it or not, I was also working as a painter, but I discovered that this book was called The Painter's Bible, about the world of work and about the world we live in, and I loved it. I brought it to work with me every day.
I would kind of call it a literary version of Des Capital, really.
The solutions it posits, a socialist system, a system where working class people have ownership over their own destiny and their own fate, that needs to be reclaimed.
The ending of the book is looking forward to a commonwealth of cooperation. And that's actually what we should be doing as humans, is looking out for each other.
That's what the Ragged Trousered Philanthropists is about. Of course, we're all fallible creatures. There'll never be a perfect society. But by God, the could be a better one.